Hello, and welcome back to Sharing a Chapter a Day. This is Do, Ra, me, and today I will be reading Chapter 87 of Engagement in Peril by Dara, Odoe, Sok. Chapter 87 is titled Infidelity and Promiscuity. Who would have believed it? My past promiscuity had come back to kick me in the ass. Some months down the road from our engagement, Benevolent too had cheated on me with a male coworker of hers at her bank. Several times while Benevolent and I took time apart, she too was dating this guy behind my back while I was all alone with my lonesome self then. Then again, I am no angel myself. I too have committed adultery with a fellow classmate from my summer class at the local city college. I had several months of relation with Tre Hoa, whose name means bamboo flower. This cute, skinny Vietnamese girl was better known as Daisy. She and I had taken a California plant and flower course together that summer of 2001 at Long Beach City College. Part of our class requirement was to travel and take several field trips to various garden and natural nurseries and landscapes to see and view various indigenous California plants and flowers. So during these trips to do our assignments and projects, Daisy and I would carpool there, sharing each other's company and fascinations. Several times I had the opportunity to pick up Daisy from her home in Westminster, California, and several times we went on evening dates at various bistro and such, like Vietnamese pho restaurant and eateries, and also the old spaghetti factory in Newport Beach, California. This was the very same place that Shinshin and Delilah had gone to during their dates and outing while they were somewhat deeply in love then before she and her conniving bitch of a mother took his ever-giving life several years ago. Besides that, Shinshin had also had gone to another old spaghetti factory with Delilah and her mother at the Grove Mall, where they were often attended several Dancing with the Star live show back then when they were really the outgoing couple. I surely miss my beloved Shinshin Nagami. I wish that horrible succubus of a bitch didn't ever come into his life. He had his whole life ahead of him, and his life and opportunity were so bright, full of sunbursts, I can say. And God, and God damn it, and God let that bitch and her conniving mother mess it all up for him. I wish I could have taken his place instead. What the fuck, Dara? Didn't you realize that you were doing the same thing to him then, Dara? Did you realize what you were doing then, Dara? What kind of a fiance goes around and cheats behind his girlfriend's back, or his fiance's back? But then again, Benevolent was also messing around your back. Yet she didn't go too far as to have done what you did with Daisy. You literally fucked with Daisy then, and it seemed to me then that you two, well, pretty good for each other then. It sucks that Daisy went to marry a Japanese exchange student so that he can stay in the U.S. to get his green card, like so many people you've come to know. While I was busy with my summer class with Daisy, Benevolent was in turn hanging out and having fun with her coworker Scott. The two bank coworkers seemed to be inseparable and often had lunch together during and between work, and several times Benevolent finally came clean with me about what she was doing with him during our past time apart. She admitted that she and Scott had gone on several dates behind my back while I was still living at her family home then. It was during those times that she made excuses that her workplace was having night meetings, training, and lectures. She had lied to me then, and I was still lying as well about my outing with Daisy. I too was dishonest with my fiance then. Besides telling me about Scott, Benevolent also questioned my relation with her cousin Chastity, whom she helped to get a bank teller job at Wells Fargo at the in-store branch at the local Albertsons then, which was right on the same shopping outlet with her main bank then. And they often carpooled to work, and sometime I would drive Chastity to work from there. She questioned what my relationship was with Chastity. So she said this, Dara, did you ever have sex with my cousin Chastity? This Benevolence had the audacity to ask of me, who was her goddamn fiance at the time. I had never fucked or fooled around with Chastity, although I wanted to. at times, but I knew the better. She was infested with UTI and other STD infection, and I didn't want any to do with those sort of complication. No, internal health complication. Those were my reply to Benevolent's question and inquiry of my malicious infidelity with her so-called innocent cousin. Benevolent goes on to bring up the issue about the early morning when I stayed up to comfort Chastity when she was puking up her lungs after a night of party and doing drugs, and the several email message we sent in exchange while Chastity returned to her and was living in the big island of Hawaii. I remember that morning now. It was around 3 that Sunday morning, that the day Chastity was to return to Hawaii. She had gone out on the previous Saturday night to party with friends and people she knew and had done various exotic drugs then. I'm sure she was getting high and just drinking her brains out then. I wasn't there. I was back at Benevolent's home and making love with my fiancée that night before Chastity returned home. After a good several hours of fucking our brains out that night, Benevolent and I went to bed soundly in each other's warm, comforting arm. So that early morning, Chastity luckily returned home and was puking up shit for the most part. I was awakened from the sound of her hurl and upchuck and decided to comfort her in the bathroom, away from the warm arms and comfort of my fiancée Benevolence. So I left Benevolent's side that morning and went into the bathroom to tend to Chastity's intestinal discomfort. While in the bathroom, I helped Chastity with her throw-ups. I gently tapped her on her back and caressed her arms inside, while my arms warmly embraced her to help her put her at ease from the sudden scare. Little did I know then that Chastity was having morning sickness as well from her unplanned pregnancy with a one-night stand that she had been with. While all this was going on in the bathroom several feet away, Benevolent slept soundly in the room next door, so I had thought that she was asleep. After a good half hour or so, Chastity was feeling a wee bit better, and we both washed up. After a quick, firm hug of gratitude, we both returned to our room and went to bed. In our separate beds, of course. I returned to bed next to Benevolence. While Chastity slumbered into her twin-sized bed across the room from me, I snuck myself back into the warm embrace of Benevolence, although it wasn't as warm as before. A cold chill had come over our once warm partnership then. Benevolence had turned away from me that morning. I thought nothing of it. I just went back to sleep with the thought that I had helped Chastity with her struggle that early morning. After several hours of shut eyes that same morning, after some breakfast and getting ready at around 10, Benevolent and I drove Chastity to catch a flight to an American airline to Hawaii out of LAX airport. While driving there, we didn't say much. Each of us had few things to say to each other. I didn't bring up the issue that Chastity was throwing up that early morning, and that I helped to comfort her. I just didn't want Benevolence to know my good, mischievous deed then. I guess I was getting a cheap feel and thrill in the process of helping her. While Chastity sat in the back seat of my Honda Civic, I guess from the motion of the moving vehicle or from her morning sickness from being pregnant, she threw up again and all over my back passenger seat. A little peeved from what she had done, I quickly handed her some tissue and plastic bag to clean it up. She apologized. Grinding my teeth quietly, I said nothing of it. I'm sure Benevolent was laughing inside then. She probably said that I deserved it. We got to LAX around an hour later, found a parking place where we both walked Chastity to her terminal and sent her off. We each said our goodbyes while Chastity embraced and hugged her cousin goodbye. I looked on, wishful thoughts. I too was going to get to embrace Chastity. That never happened that morning. We didn't want Benevolent to think that we were having a thing for each other, so Chastity and I just shook hands and said bye. Once Chastity left through the gate to her flight, Benevolent and I went back to my car and we drove home. We didn't really say much to each other then, just this and that, and we went home, avoiding an argument in the process. Several weeks down the road from the days we both dropped off Chastity at the LAX airport, Benevolence questioned me about my email messages exchanged with her cousin Chastity, who copied and pasted my message to her cousin Benevolence, my fiancée, of our conversation. It was nothing I had told Benevolence, just hellos and how you're doing and sort of thing. That's all, so I had told her. Also, Chastity had confided with Benevolence that she was several months pregnant, but didn't bother telling her cousin that the pregnancy wasn't mine, her baby wasn't mine. She just kept it up in the air, which allowed it for Benevolence to think that the bastard baby brewing inside Chastity was of my doing. I had never had sex or fuck with your cousin, Benevolence. This I had demanded to Benevolence when she questioned my relation with her cousin. With her cousin, I had never had sex or fucked with your cousin, Benevolence, you bitch. Turns out that Chazzy got knocked up by Eric, a friend of Benevolence's older brother, who was in the clear. 'Cause Chastity didn't want to name names then. What a bitch that Chastity was. I was sure lucky that I didn't put my pee-wee inside that sick bitch then. I'm sure I had the chance to if I had pushed the envelope then. After a short while, Chastity finally said it wasn't me who knocked her up and entrusted to Bevan's that it was Eric's doing. As a result of Benevolence forthcoming about her promiscuity and sinful exchange with someone else other than myself, we both decided that it would be the best that I move back to live with my sister and her kids off of Hill Street. From then on, our engagement was on the rocks, and eventually we both agreed and called off our engagement with one another to the many disappointments of our families and friend then. But Evans admitted to her family that she was seeing another when we were together, and had brought up the issue of me wanting to fuck around with her cousin Chastity, and had thought that I was the father of Chastity's baby boy, of which Chastity denied any relation we both ever had with each other. Although I had moved back to stay with my sister and her kid, I had never come clean and admitted my many infidelities, as well with Daisy or any of my past relations where I served in the U.S. Armed Services in the Navy, where I fucked around with Tilly, Eileen, Ann, Amanda, Julie, and sweet, sweet Ashley. I was really involved with Daisy sexually then. Daisy and I, well, we sometimes fuck each other's brains out before and after our classes together at the local community college then. To this day, I had never admitted to this to Benevolence. I was taking the higher road then and kept my infidelity to myself now. If I remember right, I had sexual relations with Daisy about 8 times during that summer months. Half of those times we fucked and slobbered sexual relation in and out about the backseat of my Honda Civic at various parking lots and back street of the Southern California. The several other times that we made sinful love was Daisy and I fucked and made love at her family's home in the city of Westminster, California, which was about a good half hour away from the Long Beach City College on a good traffic day by freeway. Daisy had a typical girlish room then, pink and white wallpapers covered with flowery design and markers and with several posters of boy bands then. She also had several posters of Vietnamese singers and performance dance artists. Daisy spoke very little Vietnamese then, reminding me of Kelly, dang, as well. She too didn't speak much of her native tongue. She never spoke it too well. Daisy's family were well off financially. They had a nice 4 bedroom, 3 bathroom home with a 2 car garage and an actual grassy front and backyard. Daisy had a queen size comfy bed then, covered with pink and white lace bedspread and sheets. Her long pillow were decorated with snuggy huggy bears, sweet hearts, and animated creature. Her bedroom floor was covered with warm, furry, pinkish carpet, almost like the carpet that was attached to her pubic area then, except for the color. Daisy also had a personal pink Apple iMac computer in her room, atop a small white pinkish wooden work desk with 3 pull-out drawers and a nice rotating chair with armrests. Her one circular bedroom her one circular bedroom window had an outlook to the street in front. Daisy was able to easily see when her parents, guest, or visitor arrived if she looked out the window then. Daisy was quite sneaky then, in a good sense. She managed her schedule well then. During those times that we were intimate, made love, and fucked around at her family's home, Daisy was home alone and had invited me over to do our sinister sexual deed. She knew her parents' schedule well, and she had planned it out nicely for the both of us to be together. So during those nights that we went out to eat and dine at the local eateries and dive throughout around town of resident in Westminster, Daisy would invite me back to her home after making out in the car. We eventually ended up fucking our brains out and touching our body and torching our body with our sexual urges of several good hours in and about her bedroom. I wasn't one to refuse any sexual offer, let alone from this girl that I had come to like and share experience with. I was, after all, being my selfish self then, right? Just like months and years ago, I wasn't going to say no to an offer of getting my nuts off. Being with Daisy then reminded me of the good time I had shared with Ashley, Julie, Amanda, Eileen, and of all the time I had promiscuous, and of all the time I was promiscuous, promiscuous, and having my way with those wonderful women that I have come to know during my time serving in the United States Navy. During our first sexual relation, Daisy and I talked about our past sexual partner and discussed if we had any form of STDs. Whatnot. We both had a clean bill of health then, and after our questions and conveying each other's past, we both got down to business and made dirty, animalistic, passionate love that night where we were first sexually involved. Daisy confided me then that she had only been with one person, and she didn't really have a good time then, and she often masturbated with a double-sided dildo, clear rubber dildo that she and her older sister had often shared and got used to together. She had learned about sex from her sister. Daisy is a very cute thin Vietnamese girl with creamy pale skin and a little taller than me then. She was a few years my junior. I was about 3 years older than Daisy then during that time. She had a pretty easy, meager life then. Her parents were well-to-do people, and she was given the best thing in life then. She wasn't pampered or anything, but she could have, but she could have been if she wanted to. She had very minute, she had a very, she had very minute bosom then. Her chest muscle was smaller than that of mine, but I didn't mind. Instead of suckling on her chest, I often bite into her neck and clavicle area to amuse her and help her get in the mood of being sexually abused and hammered by our passionate lovemaking. Our passionate, heavy lovemaking. Daisy also wore braces in return then, and at time, while she gave me head, her metal bracelet would cut and nick my shaft. Small drops of blood would trickle down my shaft and into her gulping mouth, that process of pain and anguish arousing me even more during our fucking and sucking of each other's orifice then. Daisy was quite good at giving oral fellatio then, and I often jerked myself off in and down her throat whenever she allowed me to, which was all the time we had sexual relations. Daisy wasn't as sexually versed as I was then, but we shared what we wanted from each other, and I showed her some moves and steps that she uses to this day. Since Daisy was skinny and weighed less than 100 pounds, she was quite easy to lift or fuck while in the air. I was able to lift her easily with various moves that required me to lift her and such. She wasn't as hefty as Eileen back in Newport, where I had trouble getting her on my waist then. But the love making was enjoyable all the time, all the same. The beast in me once again emerged then. I bite, tore, and ravaged at Daisy. I was a damn sexual demon then, fucking and making love to Daisy while she bounced up and down on my shaft while I was standing up. Standing up didn't put much strain on my back, and we both seemed to enjoy what we were doing to each other then. We both agreed that that being sexually involved means nothing more than friendship, just two friends who fucks each other, and that what was to both of us, and that's what we both wanted from each other, just fuck buddies. We both made the agreement and a pact together then. It was quite enjoyable being able to have sexual relations with Daisy with no strings attached. Little did I know then that eventually Daisy had fallen in love with me sometime down the road when our semester class was coming to an end, and she finally confided me of her true feeling. I can say that Daisy wasn't the best sexual partner that I had ever had. That title of the perfect sexual conquest still goes to Marine Corps Corporal Ashley from Sunburst, Montana, who was born and raised in Sunburst, Montana. Ashley, my beautiful, sweet Ashley. Back at Campbellsville, North Carolina. I still think to this day that Ashley could have been the one for me. After all, she was my angel of salvation. Then, during my bleakest hour, while under the care and watchful eye of naval mental health. Even nowadays, when I am having sexual and intimate relations, I often think and is fascinated about Ashley during those sexual moments with strangers and associates that I often got my junk off into and cover all over. Even while I was making nasty ass hideous love with Kaya, Daisy, Benevolence, and other who have come and gone in my sexual deviance, the memory of Ashley floods within me and brings back my enjoyable sexual memory then in the embrace of Ashley's warm and comforting arm, body, and legs back then in that brisk winter, winter, February of 1999. Besides fucking each other to the point of exhaustion, Daisy and I were also careful to use contraceptive during our fuckfest. She was on birth control, and I was always using a rubber then. We were both the careful fucking bandits then. fucking behind her parents' back and protecting ourselves from unnecessary misfortunes and obstacles along the way. Daisy blowjob and handjob got the job done as well. After all, we used each other as fuck partners then, and it was just that simple. And it was just simply that. Daisy didn't really like anal sex. It was too painful for her to bear. It was too painful for her to bear, so we only tried it once then. And during that only time, I ripped open her asshole tissue, structure, and lining. And since then, she never wanted another penis inside her tightly knit rectum. I think that Daisy enjoyed getting oral pleasure from me then, more than being pounded and fucked in her tasty snatch. Daisy often moaned in joyous pain while she suffocated me while I was eating away at her warm, juicy lady parts then. Since she was quite skinny then, being pounded into and against her pelvic girdle, much strain was placed on and against her pubic area, often causing her to be in much agonizing pain, and many times during our fucking, when I was really into it and really wanting to pound harder into her, she would often stop me because the pain inside the pelvic area of her was often unbearable. She often apologized for not allowing me to finish inside of her, but I enjoyed it all the same when I ejaculated into her mouth and all over her adorable, young, creamy Vietnamese porcelain face. So the oral pleasure was soothing, comforting, and fascinating to her then. She would often bury my head deep inside her snatch, arousing me and urging me on to eat away at her until she burst open with urine and cum juice into my mouth and all over my suffocating face. Daisy was getting her nuts off that way as well, and I was eager to please her as she likes it. After all, it was a mutual exchange of bodily fluids and uncontrollable passion. Daisy planned our sexual encounter well. I always left her home before her parents returned and arrived, at times only minutes and seconds ahead because I would often see their luxurious Jaguar drive by at the end of their block when I left their family home. Daisy was good at this sort of thing, and as the summer ended, so did our relationship and friendship then. Eventually, months down the road, she ended up marrying a Japanese fellow to help him stay and gain his residency in the United States and a green card. My relation with Daisy during those months were quite pleasurable. She was a good friend then. I only wish her well and good blessings. I only hope that she is now happy and would like to think that her and her Japanese husband relation had lasted and perhaps that they have children together. God bless you, Daisy. Thank you for the time and experiences that we both had shared. Your thoughts and memory will humbly live in me and have always been. I wish that one day we can meet and greet each other and perhaps reminisce of what we had once. The thought of all those I had been in relation with and been sexually involved with always be in my long-term memory. The thoughts of all those I have been in relations with and had sexually involved with will always be in my long-term memory. From Kaya, the Mormon girl that I recently fucked around with in Lakewood, Colorado, to Suzanne, my middle school sweetheart, who was my first intimate partner back in middle school in Long Beach, California. They will live in me forever. And of course, the sexual misdeed that Delilah and I had behind my beloved Shinshin's back will too be in my long-term memory. It will remind me of how much a bastard I have become till my end day comes, and once I will face my Maker, and I will tell him this. I will tell him that I have been such a bastard, and admit to the Lord Almighty that it was me who killed off Shinshin. I am a bastard, especially to my late beloved Shinshin Nagami. This is the end of chapter 87. Be on the lookout for chapter 88, titled Los Angeles Museum of Tolerance. This is Do, Ra, me, and I'll see you later. Thank you.